get our internet historian reaction to the guy that was like predicting the end of the world?
Going camping at the end of the world.
Yeah. The discussion in the comment section was really interesting,
Mm-hmm.
and people seem to appreciate our talking about our experiences with evangelical Christians and growing up in the 90s, the early 2000s, with that kind of situation going on around us, and kind of being thrown into the mix of that.
Yeah.
Because it was unavoidable. It was unavoidable. If you went to a public school, then you had to deal with it. And if you went to a not public school, the only ones that were available
were Christian
schools. So you would have been drowning in it.
Yeah.
So we had to deal with those messages coming from that base heavily.
And it's not like a positive, there's a...
Well, it was disguised as positive.
Yeah, toxic positivity, but, it's not like some idea of like, well, this will really help you through these times, although that's what they pretended
kind of.
But they really forced a lot of guilt. That's what I got.
The main thing that I got from it was, it's the end of the world. It's not that it is the end of the world.
Right around the corner.
It could be tonight. It could be right now,
soon.
right in the middle. It's soon. The end of the world.
The world's never been this bad.
Yeah, things like this have never happened.
Yeah.
Everything's the worst. The apocalypse is upon us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not only that, but you're probably going to go to hell. But don't worry, buy in while supplies last.
Yeah. You can be saved. But if you're saved,
Mm-hmm.
you can't get saved again, even though we're going to make you feel like shit. And
no, it was just this big cycle of guilt, shame, fear, passion bombing, and...
I'm right, you're stupid, you don't know shit, listen to me. That's what I got a lot.
Well, not even just I'm right, you're stupid. I'm right, you're doing so wrong that you're going to burn in eternity.
And
you're
I
a child.
care about you so
I don't.
much.
Just the only reason I'm doing this because I don't want that to happen to you.
Yeah.
And
you're legit just like a kid, like fucking eating Cheerios and watching like Danny Phantom or whatever.
With such a strong imagination, and they deliver to that crazy machine.
Dude.
And, our brains don't understand, so we're just creating these awful scenarios. But the reason why I'm even bringing all that up is because a lot of that I was around was like very hyper focused on the most difficult to understand part of the Bible, that is also the darkest and most frightening parts of the Bible.
Yep.
That was the main focus. It wasn't the compassion, the love, the forgiveness, the understanding.
Because, fuck that.
Yeah, it was more about everything is awful, everybody's going to die. If you listen, if you do this, then you're going to hell. If you do that, then you're going to hell.
Yeah.
Not the...
Meanwhile, those same people were, doing terrible
unbelievably
things.
bad things, yeah.
Actually bad things.
Actually terribly bad things, yeah. So it's really one of those things that in my brain, I know what the biblical apocalypse is supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of have an understanding of what people who have hyper obsessed about it and push think that it is.
Yeah.
But here we have a survival guide to the biblical apocalypse. It's a YouTube video, and it is by a content creator. I don't even know how to say that. Hoochlaga or something like that.
Hoochlaga.
Anyway, I'm not going to
let us know how we're picturing that.
Fucking fix that. But it's relatively new, and it seems to be pretty popular. So I wanted to take a look at. This doesn't look like it's coming from a church.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't really know shit about the actual Bible. I've never studied it. I've never tried to interpret it on my own, apart from when I was in my early 20s and just completely overwhelmed with it all. And then after that, I've just been I'm just going to be a good person. I know what
You just kind of tapped out before you ever even got that far.
Yep. It burned me out like way too quick with all the bullshit.
Well, once I found other people that were Christians who were like, I'm going to agree to disagree on a lot of the shit that they think, and that's just not my style. You know, they perceive Jesus as this really chill guy who kind of saw the error in humanity and just wanted to go ahead and make love the most important thing.
Until I met you and some of the people that like went to the church that you were raised in, like it was always fire and brimstone. Like I've never met. It was
for me for the largest part of my life. Even, you know, I was going to church and like my mom and my stepdad, and they were not. I would go on my own to church. Wow. Yeah, I've always been really interested in theology and history and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, it was very weird. I was like the only kid doing that. Yeah. But once I started going to a Presbyterian church outside of the evangelical kind of chain of churches, well, they're dominant. You know, Methodist would be Presbyterian and Methodist would be the ones that kind of are right up against that and not like that really, and just kind of...
Yeah, I've never been to one.
Right. They're still big in our area, but they're nowhere near the Pentecostal non-denominational church. The non-denominational churches are Pentecostal churches.
Well, when I was really young, it was like Baptist churches.
And it was first, Free Will Baptist.
Super old white men telling women like what they need to be doing. And it's yelling. And
a lot of those churches are just open to interpretation of what that really is. Because I've seen different churches be totally different, even though they're this denomination. Yeah. You know, it really boils down to the leadership, how tightly they hold to the overarching rules of that denomination and its interpretation of the Bible and stuff like that. Every church is going to be different, but the mold for where I grew up until the age of like 12 and 13, that part of my life was spent in and around churches that were fire and brimstone, the horror house, Halloween time stuff where they would make you see all kinds of jacked up stuff and tell you about people going to hell and strobe lights and it's
hell houses,
houses,
for sure.
Yeah, so that was the focus of a lot of my early Christianity. So a lot of this stuff, I already know it. So I'm interested to see this explained outside of the church.
Okay.
Because I've never known anyone who has ever really dug deep into it who is not trying to sell it.
Right.
So.
Well, usually it's people who are trying to like do the opposite. You know what I mean?
The apocalypse, doomsday, the end of the world. It's a gloomy subject that many world religions have approached. In Christianity, the last book of the Bible, the book of Revelation, contains a frightening vision of cataclysmic events, demonic horsemen, and even a few multi-eyed Bible-accurate angels for good measure. This book is without doubt the strangest and most disturbing book in the whole Bible, so naturally, it's a topic I had to cover on this channel. You may have heard of the book of Revelation, but may not be so familiar with what actually happens in the book. For example, where does the number 666 fit into all of it? If you're looking to learn more about the biblical apocalypse, well, you're in the right place. I've crafted together this handy introductory video. You never know when you might need it. Before we start, it's worth noting that I'm going to examine the book of Revelation from a secular, non-religious perspective. The book is highly symbolic and probably not meant to be taken literally. So, at occasional moments throughout the video, I'll explain what some of the symbolism may mean, using the interpretations of biblical scholars. Disclaimer out the way. Bring on the apocalypse. The word apocalypse itself comes from the Greek, and it literally means to uncover something. That's actually why it's called the Book of Revelation. It's all to do with something being revealed. In this case, the end of the world. There's a rich history of these apocalypses in the Old Testament, but they don't necessarily have anything to do with the end times. Sometimes they're just these startling visions of the otherworldly, like a glimpse of God's throne in the book of Ezekiel, or a dream featuring 4 strange beasts in the book of Daniel. The book of Revelation is from the perspective of a guy called John. We don't know much about this character. It's not the same John who baptized people in the Jordan, nor is it the same person who wrote the 4th Gospel. No, this is an entirely different John.
What?
It turns out that there's a lot of people called John in the Bible. In fact, some scholars believe that this particular John might not have existed at all. Like most books in the Bible, the book of Revelation was written and edited by anonymous authors, and so John may have been a pseudonym. Scholars say that the oldest part of the book was probably written around 65 CE during the reign of Emperor Nero, and may have reached its final form at around 95 CE during the reign of Emperor Domitian. Both of these emperors, particularly the first one, Emperor Nero, were known for their brutal persecutions of early Christians. A significant detail in order to understand the worldview behind the book of Revelation. It was written in a frightening time for these first Christians, and their anxieties were captured on the pages, containing a frightening collection of visions about the end of the world. Let's turn to the contents of the vision itself. We start off in the idyllic Greek island of Patmos, where our main character John has been exiled. Behind him, he suddenly hears a booming voice calling his name. He turns around only to see a spectral figure bathed in bright light, surrounded by 7 golden lampstands. This unnamed person, who some believe to be Jesus himself, has a very strange appearance. He is enrobed in white, with eyes like fire, and protruding from his mouth is a sharp, 2-edged sword. Yes, this description is in the text, and trust me, it's not the strangest we've yet to see. This strange figure tells John to write to the 7 churches dotted across the Mediterranean, to give them a heads up about what's about to go down. Once he does so, John is immediately whisked up into heaven. From there, John gives a spectacular account of everything he sees. In front of him is a giant throne, with 24 smaller thrones surrounding it. The central throne is so bright, glistening like many precious stones, that he can't actually make out the figure sitting on it, but we can safely assume that it's meant to be God himself. But his attention is quickly drawn to 4 strange, multi-eyed beasts that are floating around near the throne. Although the Bible calls them simply living creatures, you may already be familiar with them as Bible-accurate angels, good friends of the channel at this point. Here's a description he gives of them. Around the throne, and on each side of the throne, are 4 living creatures, full of eyes in front and behind. The first living creature is like a lion, the second living creature is like an ox, the third living creature with a face like a human face, and the 4th living creature like a flying eagle. All 4 living creatures, each of them with 6 wings, are full of eyes all around and inside. Day and night without ceasing they sing, "Holy, holy, holy, the Lord God the Almighty, who was and is to come." A very strange description indeed. A winged lion, ox, humanoid and eagle, covered in eyes from head to toe and singing praises to God eternally. By this point, you may have already watched my video on Bible-accurate angels, and you may be familiar with these creatures in the book of Ezekiel in the Old Testament. They feature in a magnificent vision the Hebrew prophet gives of God's heavenly throne. In that video, I suggested that they likely developed from the Mesopotamian cherubim, known as lamassu. Sadly, however, there are none of those wheels with eyes, known as ophanim, to be found in this account. Not much else is said about these 4 eldritch hybrids other than this, although some have interpreted their multi-eyes as a symbol of God's all-seeing nature. Others see it to be deliberately creepy. Now, I don't know about you, but I certainly see why they'd think this. After his description of the 4 living creatures, next before John comes another strange beast. It is described as looking like a lamb, although it has 7 horns and 7 eyes, because of course it does. It also looks like it's been slain. Because of this, many associate this being with Jesus, who is sometimes called the Lamb of God. Whatever it is, the lamb creature holds in its hooves a large scroll with 7 wax seals. With this, the apocalypse is truly underway. When the first seal is broken, out comes a man on a white horse, wielding a bow and wearing a crown. This is the embodiment of conquest, the first of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Seal 2 is broken, and out comes a horseman astride a red horse, holding a large sword. This is the horseman of war, kinda similar to conquest in my opinion, but whatever. Seal 3 is broken, and out comes a rider on a black horse, holding weighing scales. This is the horseman of famine. Finally, the fourth seal is broken, and out comes a rider on a pale horse, the embodiment of death itself. With 4 of the 7 seals broken, the lamb creature hands the 4 horsemen a quarter of the Earth's population to destroy, either through violence, famine, pestilence, or death. Okay, so there are 3 seals left, and 3 unpleasant events left to transpire. Luckily, Seal 5 is a bit of a dud. Nothing really happens other than the souls of the martyrs are given nice white robes, and told to wait around a bit for the final judgment. But when Seal 6 is open, things get really nasty for people on Earth. No sooner than the seal is broken, and there is a giant earthquake, an earthquake so large that, quote, every mountain and island was removed from its place. If we take this literally, this kind of earthquake would far surpass the magnitudes of the biggest recorded earthquakes, like the 1960 Valdiva earthquake in Chile that measured 9.5 on the Richter scale. Such a large earthquake would be particularly bad news for anyone living on tectonic fault lines. As well as a cataclysmic earthquake, the 6th seal would also make the sky turn black. Were it to happen, perpetual darkness would be devastating for Earth, especially for plant life, which requires sunlight to perform photosynthesis. Interestingly, such events have actually happened before, and are often caused by major volcanic eruptions. In 536 CE, during a period in European history aptly known as the Dark Ages, a giant volcanic eruption, believed to be from Indonesia, triggered what is known as a volcanic winter. This is when vast quantities of volcanic ash enter the atmosphere, dimming the sunlight and causing rapid cooling. Writing from Constantinople in 536, Byzantine historian Procopius wrote that, quote, during this year a most dreaded portent took place, for the sun gave forth its light without brightness, and it seemed exceedingly like the sun in eclipse, for the beams it shed were not clear. Other contemporary writers as far away as Ireland have attested to the same extreme weather, indicating that this phenomenon may have been widespread at the time, and that the Earth was indeed in a volcanic winter. If giant earthquakes and volcanic winters were not enough, the 6th seal also describes how, quote, the stars of the sky fell to Earth. Now, if an actual star collided with the Earth, then that'd really be game over, as Earth would be engulfed into a much larger ball of flame and plasma. It is more likely, therefore, that the author is referring to a meteor shower. Often these are quite harmless. Earth orbits through many space rocks every day, resulting in beautiful shooting stars. Things get dangerous, however, when these rocks are big enough to not fully burn up in the atmosphere. One such occasion was the Tunguska event in 1908, where a meteoroid of an estimated 100 meters landed in eastern Siberia, flattening the surrounding forest of up to 2,100 square kilometers, that's 830 square miles. Being in Siberia, the land was sparsely populated, so only 3 people were believed to have been killed. Had this landed on a city in 1908, then it would have been truly catastrophic. Seal 6 is pretty brutal. Mega earthquakes, perpetual darkness, and meteorite impacts. But there is one more seal left, the 7th seal. Fortunately, just like Seal 5, Seal 7 doesn't bring too much calamity. The book simply says, quote, there was a silence in heaven for about half an hour. Perhaps the multi-eyed living creatures from earlier can finally get a break from singing God's praises. You would have thought that the 7 seals were enough to end Earth. More bad things are on the way. Almost as soon as the 7th seal is opened, out come 7 angels holding 7 trumpets. Now, you've probably noticed that the number 7 appears quite a bit in the book of Revelation. 7 golden lampstands, 7 seals, now 7 trumpets. The number 7 is a significant one throughout the Bible. For example, in the book of Genesis, it reportedly took 7 days to create the universe. In the ancient world, this number 7 was often regarded as the number of completion. The idea that the number 7 was a special number carried on into later Christian tradition, where you also get the 7 deadly sins, which, by the way, is another topic I've covered on the channel. Forget what you've seen about cute angels with sweet little trumpets. These 7 trumpets are about to destroy the earth. It's about to get dark, and in the case of trumpet 4, quite literally. Let's quickly rattle off what each trumpet does. Trumpet 1 causes fire and hail to rain down on the earth. Wildfires soon rage on the planet, and a third of Earth's vegetation gets burnt up. Trumpet 2 sounds, and a great mountain-sized object falls into the sea, turning a third of the oceans into blood. It also kills a third of the innocent sea creatures, which is pretty sad.
Yeah.
Trumpet 3 plays, and a star falls from heaven and lands onto the Earth's rivers. The star is even given a name, wormwood. This is actually a type of semi-poisonous herb, also known as mugwort.
Nice.
Which makes sense in the Book of Revelation, because wormwood contaminates all the world's fresh water supplies, making it bitter and toxic. Trumpet 4 toots, and the third of the sun goes out, shrouding the planet in darkness. We seem to have already had this one already, back in the 6th seal. This discrepancy has led some scholars to suggest that a different author is writing here, perhaps unaware of the previous destruction wrought by the 7 seals. Trumpet 5, in my opinion, is the strangest of them all. An angel descends to earth with a big key. The key opens a large trapdoor to a bottomless pit, and out of the pit comes a thick black smoke that eclipses whatever sunlight was left. Then, out of the dense fumes, emerge giant locusts that swarm and cause plagues all over the earth. Now, these aren't just any giant locusts, they are Book of Revelation giant locusts, and so they're given a very disturbing description. Here goes. They have human faces and long flowing hair, they wear armour and have little crowns on their head. Oh, also, they have lion's teeth and giant scorpion stingers. Because, again, why not? These creatures are given the instruction to sting people, but not enough to kill them. In fact, it says that people will be unable to die during this time, no matter how much they might wish to. This is absolute nightmare fuel, but there are still 2 trumpets to go. Trumpet 6 is sounded, and 4 angels are released to kill a third of humankind, all of whom help to exterminate a third of humans' population. The final trumpet, Trumpet 7, doesn't cause any destruction. Instead, there's a little hymn for those in heaven, and a few flashes of lightning here and there, but no major destruction on Earth. At this point, I'd imagine that the world is practically unlivable. I'm starting to think that calling this video a survival guide might seem a bit pointless. The water has turned into blood, things are on fire, there's no sunlight anymore, and there are giant manticore-looking locusts stinging people. The Book of Revelation has really gone to town in painting the most disastrous picture possible. Believe it or not, there are still yet more troubles to come, but in the form of 3 giant monsters. Up first is a giant red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns. So 2 of the 7 heads have 2 horns each. The tail of the dragon is so large that when it sweeps, it apparently casts a third of the stars down. We find out that the red dragon is Satan himself, who is suddenly attacked and defeated by the archangel Michael. Dragon Satan gets booted out of heaven and thrown down to earth, and the land swallows him up. After this strange little episode comes the main attraction, the 2 so-called beasts. The first beast comes out from the sea. This first beast has the shape of a leopard. It's got feet like a bear and a mouth like a lion. It's got multiple heads, and no surprises that there are 7 of them. Like the dragon, it's got 10 horns, with a diadem on each of those horns. One of the heads, however, looks to be wounded. Once coming up from the sea, this beast goes around bad-mouthing God and saying all kinds of blasphemies. The survivors on Earth, and yes, apparently there are survivors, all start to worship this monster. Then, suddenly, the earth opens up and another strange beast comes out from the ground. Compared with the first beast, the description is lacking a bit. All we get is that it has 2 horns like a lamb, but speaks like a dragon, and that's really it. This beast goes around telling the inhabitants of Earth how great beast number 1 is, and performs a bunch of magic tricks to prove it's legit. The character is later known as the False Prophet, although you may be familiar with the name used for it in other Christian texts, the Antichrist, literally meaning the anti-Messiah. So, should you choose to believe in this monster, it's bad news for you. This beast goes around and writes a specific number on the foreheads of idolaters, the famous mark of the beast, the number 666. What is significant about this number, 666? Well, many biblical scholars have suggested that it's a code for the tyrannical Emperor Nero. You see, in the classical world, there was this practice of assigning letters to numbers. It's known as gematria. Hebrew letters had this system too, and if you spell out Emperor Nero in Hebrew, they add up to the number 666. Some of the oldest versions of the Book of Revelation, like this papyrus manuscript found at Oxyrhynchus in Egypt, have the number 616. Gematria still works here, just for a different spelling of Nero's name. Interestingly, the Book of Revelation says that in order to buy and sell things, you need to show the mark of the beast. As with today's currencies, Roman coins often featured the head of state, in this case the emperor. So, in order to barter and trade, you need to show the mark of the beast, i.e. the Emperor Nero's face on coinage. This interpretation is further supported by the Greek word for mark, as in mark of the beast, which is charagma, and it's most commonly used to refer to the imprinting of coins. What's the Emperor Nero got to do with the beast? Well, Emperor Nero, who ruled from 54 to 68 CE, was responsible for a number of infamous Christian persecutions. Early Christians refused to worship the emperor, who, in the imperial cult, was a divine figure. Instead, they held that their exclusive belief was in God, the God of Israel. This enraged many a Roman emperor, especially Nero, who attempted to persecute them out of existence. He even blamed the Great Fire of Rome on the Christians, and contemporary writers wrote harrowing accounts of all the suffering this emperor inflicted, such as throwing Christians to lions. As a result, Nero especially became a symbol of evil. So, when the book of Revelation is talking about people worshipping the beast, it refers to the practice of worshipping the emperor. All this is done in code. Those who bear the mark 666, in other words Nero, will be condemned to suffer for all eternity. Whilst the earth is under the dominion of these strange beasts, / Roman emperors, up in heaven the angels are preparing the final phase of destruction. We've had 7 seals, 7 trumpets, and now we've got 7 bowls. These bowls are said to be full of God's wrath, whatever that entails. Either way, the bowls work in a similar way to the seals and trumpets. When they're poured onto the earth, bad things happen. Here we go again, final one this time. Bowl 1 is poured onto the earth and painful sores and boils form on all the people who wear the mark of the beast on their forehead. Bowl 2 causes the whole sea now to turn into blood, no longer just a third of it. Bowl 3 causes all the fresh water, the lakes and the rivers, to turn to blood. Yep, lots of blood in this passage. Bowl 4 causes the sun's heat to intensify, scorching people on earth badly. Bowl 5 causes the kingdom of the beast to go dark, and political instability ensues. Some have seen this as a reference to the fall of the Roman Empire. Bowl 6 causes the river Euphrates, that's in modern-day Iraq, to dry up. Later, the world's armies all assemble and do battle at a place known as Armageddon. Fun fact, the Hebrew word for Armageddon is Har Megiddo, referring to Mount Megiddo in northern Israel. Over time, Har Megiddo shifted to Armageddon, and because of the book of Revelation, it became another name for the apocalypse. Bowl 7 is your classic Book of Revelation business. Lightning, hailstones, and a massive earthquake which destroys the city of Babylon. However, where Babylon was the great city of evil in the Old Testament, by the time of the New Testament being written, the city of Babylon had long been deserted, having been conquered by the Persians some 500 years before. So instead, many believe that Babylon is a reference to the capital city of the empire, Rome. Again, it's another example of the Book of Revelation speaking in code. After a third and final round of devastation, which seems to me a tad excessive, the vision in the Book of Revelations begins to near its end. In fact, the whole thing wraps up pretty quickly. Without much of a struggle, the first and second beast are captured by the armies of God and are kicked into, quote, a lake of fire that burns with sulphur, which is probably a reference to hell. Then the giant multi-headed dragon, which is Satan, is locked up in the pit too and is sealed for 1,000 years. In this intermission, Jesus comes down to rule the earth until things pick up again. Well, time flies. 1,000 years pass and Satan is released. It's now time for the epic final showdown of biblical proportions. However, the series finale of the Bible is a bit anticlimactic. All that happens is a shoot of fire zips down from heaven and engulfs the evil army. Satan and all his monsters are cast into the lake of fire and sulphur to join the beasts, and his evil influence finally comes to an end. The Book of Revelation draws to a close, and we get the Bible's happy ending, a vision of something called the New Jerusalem. It's a description of a wondrous new city made of solid gold. Our protagonist John goes to great lengths to describe its dimensions, and it turns out that the New Jerusalem is one giant cube. Its length, width and height are 12,000 stadia, which is 2,220 kilometers, that's 1,380 miles. In this city, God, Jesus, all the do-gooders, and all the multi-eyed creatures live in perpetual harmony. It is this vision of a strange sci-fi construction that the Book of Revelation closes with, and with it, the entire Bible comes to an end. So, without a doubt, the Book of Revelation is the strangest book in the Bible, finishing it off in a maelstrom of fire, earthquakes, eldritch creatures, chaos and calamity. If such an event were to take place, it looks to be a pretty unpleasant affair. In such a complex and intricate book of the Bible, I haven't managed to explore everything this strange book has to offer, just the main story beats. If you'd like me to cover any aspects that have interested you in this video, do write them down in the comments below. A theme across this book, and many other New Testament texts, is that Jesus will return and bring with him the second coming and a fiery cataclysm. The very first communities of Christians believed such an event would happen in their lifetime, but when it never came to pass, the hope was transferred to generations after them, and so on until the present day. Throughout history, theologians and everyday folk have attempted to figure out when the apocalypse will happen, and whether there'll be any warning signs that hint that it's on its way. Often, as in always, they get it spectacularly wrong, and occasionally embarrass themselves in the process. Just like Pope Sylvester feared that the year 1000 would mark the end of the world, some worried that the year 2000 would too, in fear of the Y2K, where computers would cease to function, causing a global technological meltdown. More recently, 2012 was seen as a good year for the apocalypse. Misplaced fears about the Mayan calendar led some to believe that the Earth was on a collision course with the fictitious planet Nibiru. Just as the Mayan calendar continued, the Gregorian calendar continued, and we're still here today. To my mind, I doubt that anyone can ever predict when the end of the world is going to happen. So, for now, we can relax. People have got it wrong in the past, so let's hope they'll continue to get it wrong in the future. Hey, thanks for watching this video. Really hope you enjoyed this one. It was an absolute blast to make. If you like this kind of stuff, especially this longer form video, why not subscribe? A like and a comment also go a really long way. After a bit of pause in uploads to finish off my university dissertation, I'm glad to say that I've graduated. Thank you all for your patience. More videos to come, I promise. I have plenty of videos that I've been itching to make anyway. I look forward to seeing you next time. Goodbye.
Like on Crash Bandicoot when you get the dude with the mask. So like his name, Hushlaga. I don't know. That's just like as soon as.
That's kind of mean.
What?
Hoochalaga?
Hushlaga. That's just
I
what it
can't
meant.
say it.
I don't know. That's
don't
just
know.
where my brain went.
Very interesting though. Very insightful, and never a way that I was ever told about any of this stuff.
Well, parts of it yes, and parts of it just like either I don't remember or like I remember. I kind of like had a moment, and I'll probably go back and watch myself, that I was just like, oh shit, that's why we did that in church. So like, you know, when I was a kid up until like 11, 12, like you said, it was like Baptist church. Then we went to non-denominational, aka Pentecostal churches, and like they would do a lot of questionable things, but one of them was they would like blow the shofar, which is like the big ram horn thing.
That's something I've learned about Pentecostal churches. Any reference to Revelations, any way they can tie in, we're gonna die, we're all gonna die soon.
But like no, so like they didn't do it every time, because there was only certain people who were like worthy of blowing the shofar. Shofar? That just Jafar, blowing Jafar. That's anyway.
Like something they just made up.
Anyway, so like that would happen sometimes, and like you will be excited to hear this in your life, because that means that the Lord is coming. So every time I'd hear a horn, God damn it, it's happening.
Yeah, I live next to the railroad tracks, so whenever the train would come by, it used to scare the shit out of me. I thought it was the end of the world.
Yeah.
Because that's the stuff that they tell you. They don't tell you about all this stuff. Oh, by the way, there will be 1,000 years of peace when Jesus...
Yeah, I don't remember that.
They act like it starts, and then you either go directly to heaven, or everybody is just tortured, and it's a massacre forever.
And I didn't know about each individual horn would do this.
And in the details, there's things about different things, and there's so many different interpretations of those things. And dude, I have read the Bible. I have been in classes studying this shit. I have taken classes in school and passed them in college, and did not know that there was a whole bunch of different Johns in the Bible.
Nah.
I thought John from the book of John
was just John,
and then the revelation to John was to fucking John.
Yeah, I got a D in Bible studies, but my professor had dementia and would literally show up to class and just not be there.
I am 32 years old. And I am just now finding out that there was like a whole bunch of Johns in the Bible.
Look, I don't know, and I'm laughing about it because I'm never going to know. I'm never going to understand it. And I'm okay with that. I am okay with that.
Here's something that really just like, I don't get about religion. It's pushed on us at such an early age that we don't have a choice, honestly. And if we break free from it and come back, well, I mean that too, but like, even if you then come back from it, if you step back and evaluate it and you're still cool with it once you see it for the option that it is, it's not fair because you can't even remember where it started.
Right. No. At least that's how it is for us, and I'm sure a lot of people around the world.
You need to know where to start, though.
You were born into a family that they had these set ideals of what the world was.
Well, why I want to know why I got started with Adam and Eve, the creation of the world, Noah's Ark. Like,
Same.
That's not the important...
Jonah and the whale.
That's not the important stuff. That's... Whenever I'm a kid, I'm not like, oh my God, how did human beings get created in Earth? Maybe when I was like 8 or 9. Yeah. But when I was a kid, when they were teaching me these things, they didn't say, this book, this is a religion, this is...
We'll
blah,
get
blah,
to
blah.
it.
It's just like, no.
This is
there was a 2 chickens and 2, and that's just like, oh, I can count to 2.
Yeah.
I like apples. So some apples are bad. No, they're not.
All snakes are bad.
Oh, people are bad. Snakes are bad. Yeah. Just like, to get to the point where I am in my, almost teenage years, and I'm trying to interpret the end of time. It's just like...
Dude, I was like...
Why am I doing this?
12 years old, watching people convulse and fall to the ground and, like, speaking this language. I'm like, these people are having strokes. We got to call 911. Yeah. We got to get them out of here. No, the Lord's blessing them. I don't think so.
The speaking in tongues is one of those things that really bothers me because... I mean, it's like, I would look it up. I don't have the keyboard over here. But, like, speaking in tongues is not supposed to be... The way that I've read it in the Bible and the way that I understand it is you're speaking in a way that's, like, magical because everyone can understand you regardless of what...
That's not how I was told, but I don't know if what I was told was correct.
There was some, like, festival or holiday or something of Pentecost.
Okay.
And there's... Someone in the Bible was needing to speak to this crowd, but there were people from all over the world in this crowd, and he was supposed to speak the word of God to them. So a fire appears. That's why I'm on fire for God. A fire appears over top of this person's head.
Okay.
And when they speak, everyone understands. And they're speaking one language, but everyone understands every word.
I was told.
That's when the Spirit of God, like they're feeling the Spirit. Mm-hmm. He felt the Spirit of God move through him and spoke, and everyone could understand it. No. That's where that comes from.
I was told that it was a language that only you and God.
No.
That way that the devil couldn't, like, intercept your message. So, like, whenever I prayed, I never prayed out loud. I was like, the devil's gonna hear me. He's gonna twist my shit and fuck my life up.
That's the thing that's fucked up. People just start making shit up to go with and along with and support.
A lot of stuff like that.
It's like self-importance cosplay is what it's like. It's like mostly these people who have just got, like, God is checking my Instagram and always liking my pictures and talking to me. People who talk about that relationship with God, like, we had such a good conversation yesterday while I was watching Dr. Phil.
Dude, that shit would piss me off. I would be a kid and they would be like, oh, God hasn't spoken to you yet. And so I was legit expecting, like, there was this pastor who was there was this pastor that was, like, in his 20s or older and was like, No, I think that man was like 50. Anyway, and he was like, I was outside, I was mowing my lawn, and the voice of God just came down and spoke to me, and I ran inside to my wife, and I'm like, man, I must be so fucking bad that God hasn't spoken to me yet. Like, what am I supposed to be doing, God? Like, you haven't told me yet. Like, I'm like in fucking 6th grade. What do you want me to be doing?
Do you remember in like 2011, 2012, where there were these loud noises coming from the sky, though?
No,
where
I
it
don't.
sounded
but you
like
do.
the people like shaking sheets of like tin and stuff.
No, I don't remember that.
But it was just loud.
Yeah.
And obviously coming. Like it could have been a plane or something that was being tested. Who knows? But there was a big viral thing of like the loud noises, and it sounded like
that.
Whoa.
I never heard it.
I heard it one time.
I never heard it.
And I was the whole time seeing videos that were coming out on Facebook and shit.
I was in
people
school,
were sharing.
so it would have been like 2011. Yeah.
And I was just like, man, people were tripping and all this. I was playing basketball out of the park one time, and I started hearing that like a whale or something.
Like someone hovering?
No, it was one of those moments of existential dread where I'm just out there, I had just been hitting the blunt, I'm playing basketball, and it wasn't just me.
Yeah.
Everybody stopped.
Everybody heard it?
And was like, what the fuck is that? Right, it was crazy. And, because it was like, people were like, it's some kind of noise coming from space. We don't know what the fuck. But so me, in my mind, I was like, oh, goddamn, this is the end of the world. Here we go.
Right.
And it was 2011.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And I was just like, are these motherfuckers right? What the Planet X and the Anunnaki and all this shit? I was just like, what the fuck's going on? But, people who sit there and they talk about, like, having these conversations with God, like literal, not just I'm praying and thinking these thoughts or whatever. I to a certain point, and even people who are speaking tongues and all this, it's like happens in these areas where people are so secluded. They're going to school, going to church, going home. That's their entire life. Or
going to work and then like going to church or being involved in church activities is their life. Like that, they have to have that self-importance. Yeah. Like there is no other connection or power over the world at large. It's really sad. And how I battle and I struggle with my faith and my feeling about things is just like, I really hope Jesus was a real dude. And I really, really hope that he had these magnificent powers and was the Son of God and stuff. Because, man, if I'm going to pick any of the religions and any of them have to be true, that guy was pretty badass. Yeah. If you just examine only Jesus. Like, practice what he taught. But like, I really also hate, there's so many fucking, like, double standards to everything about like conventional Christianity that really annoy me. It's like they say that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. They say that he did all this stuff that saved us and he was perfect pretty much as a human being. Then why does any of the other shit matter? It doesn't fucking matter. I don't know. Then why does it matter? That's always frustrated me too. It's like if all I have to do is be a good person and say that this guy's the Son of God, and that I believe if I leave everything over to him, then he's going to take care of it. The rest of it, I just have to really try to be a good person in honor of that. Right. There's no penalty for me not. Yeah. But which out of respect for the fact that he was the man like that. Yeah. I don't know. Right? But then they will literally say it all has to like boil down to money, because you got to keep coming to the church. You got to keep giving us the whatever the fuck they pass around. Yeah. Like, not to call her out, she's not gonna watch this, but like we were poor people when like I was around 10 years old. Okay, and we would go to church every Wednesday and every Sunday, and we would drive like 25 minutes to get there, 25 minutes home. You done been at work, you done been at school, whatever, or it's the weekend, you don't want to go spend
Yeah.
hours, I mean, like, half the day
No.
listening to people yell and cry and have convulsions.
Make you feel like
and
shit.
No, like, they would be having these, like, crazy decorations, like, doing this kind of thing, and, like, I mean, it was insane. It really was exhausting. And then she would be shelling out, like, I think, like, 25% of her check. Like, legit. Like, it was like a lot. And even as a child, I was like, Mama, I don't think that we have the money to be given to the church like this. Like, we need our lights on.
Yeah.
We need groceries right now. Well, God will give it back to us. And I'm like, I'm fucking hungry right now. Like, I didn't really go hungry, but we didn't have a lot. So really the hold that the church has on you, it's scary at times. Like, it really felt cultish.
Well, then that's like when I got away from that, and when my dad got custody of me and I started living with him and going to his church, it was way different. It was more study the Bible and find out what is going on here, and try to interpret things in a way that makes sense from a Jesus-minded perspective, because he's kind of a big deal. And do you see him running in the streets yelling that everybody's going to hell and there's going to be eternal
or like,
damnation
just because
and
you don't
guilt
believe in somebody's lifestyle,
well,
it's like,
Jesus
don't
kinda
fucking
guilt,
judge people.
The Jesus kind of guilt was cast the first stone.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
He was the anti-judgment
And that's
guy.
something that, like, super pisses me off, is, like, at least for the Christian people who live around here, which is, like, if you go up to somebody on the street, like, you walk into a store or whatever, like, you ask somebody, like, more than likely they're going to tell you they're Christian from around here. Like, they are a Christian.
Yes.
And then, like, they don't live the lifestyle. They don't try to help people. They don't try to be good people. They don't, I mean, like...
But if you try to challenge their ideals... Then
then
mad.
you're the one that's wrong.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, like, just do what you believe in, and, like, maybe everything will, like, be better.
Yeah. It's interesting.
I don't know.
And we definitely had a relatable childhood in that way.
Well,
There's
I mean, we
plenty
grew
of
up in the
people-
same area, so,
No,
like...
I mean, like, with people who are going to be watching this, you know, it may not have even been Christianity. It could have been something else. You know, a lot of religions are really pushy with some really jacked up stuff. So feel free to talk to us about that stuff, and the people in the comment section are always really receptive.
Even if it's not like the religion, it's like what maybe your family pushed on you, because that's how it was for me.
Well,
it's
that
like,
can be, you know, what is it that Brandon Lee says in The Crow? Something like, mother is the name of God on the lips of all children, or something like that, you know? So parents can be just as bad in all those ways as the church is, for guilt and shame and
I had a lot
stuff like
of
that. It all kind of intertwines. It's like kind of a control dynamic.
Yeah.
So but this video was interesting. I really liked hearing somebody break it down, like I said in the video, who didn't seem to be pushing it. It was more of like a breakdown of from outside perspective, which I never got.
Yeah.
The chance to even have my own outside perspective before I was adopted into this belief system, which I think plays a huge, large role in how I handle it as an adult and how I think about it.
Absolutely.
Because, I mean, it makes me sick to my stomach to even think about fully denouncing Christianity, even though I have in the past. You know,
Really?
It's something I came back to. Yes, I've refused communion a couple times, you know, in church. Which is a huge deal. So,
yeah, I don't know how I feel about it. I know, you know, what I was taught, and I'll always, like, have that with me, because you can't undo that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's ingrained in us in a time where we become who we are.
Yeah.
You
So,
know?
like, pretty much for me, it's just, like, just to try to follow the teachings of Jesus Christ and be a good person and, like, do your best to, like, help others out and, like, serve as much as you can, but like all of this, like, fear mongering, like, you know, like all this this stuff. What am I gonna do about this?
Yeah,
what am I gonna do?
Yeah, right,
what do you
that's
want?
another
What do you want me
thing.
to do? You know.
And it makes
that's gonna fucking suck if it happens to me. But what do you want?
It makes so much more sense to view it as a poetic encoded message to churches in the Mediterranean at the time who were dealing with the barbaric rule of Nero, who, by the way, didn't just fuck with Christians. This is a guy who would go murder homeless people for fun. You know, this was a psychotic. So that sounds like the Antichrist.
Right.
He sounds like exactly against Jesus. He sounds like someone who is persecuting people mercilessly versus someone who is releasing and taking up for people at all costs, even his own life, you know, for their redemption. It's the persecution versus redemption, you know, like they're complete opposites.
Good and evil.
Yeah, it makes sense that Nero himself was just the Antichrist, and maybe the state itself, the beast, you know, Rome.
And then, like, where does that leave us? You know, hillbillies from Appalachia. Oh, God, don't let them
us.
Cut your head off or mark the 666. Like, what the fuck?
Don't get that shot. You know what that is.
Oh, my God.
You know?
No, literally, that was it's a meme to us, but in a like flea market type Facebook group.
I think I showed you that.
No, I found that and I sent it to you.
Ones. I've seen
someone literally posted that like early 2020, and I was like, "You gotta be shitting me."
Shut up! You probably have chicken pox, don't you? Don't you? You probably have chicken pox. You're the one. You're the one that has polio. Anyway. What an interesting video, interesting discussion. If you enjoyed any or all of that, you could support Hotschlager. Or you could support us by liking, subscribing, doing all that stuff you know how to do because you're on YouTube right now because you know how to use it. Do all those wonderful things for us and for this channel, and it would help us all as a community, even yourself, especially if you want to see stuff like this. Or you could recommend videos you would like for us to watch down in the comments section or on our Discord channel, which will be linked down with this original video in the description below. All of that is up to you. Have free will, my friends. We're going to do whatever it is we want to do. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to say goodbye now.
Yeah.
See
Bye.
you guys.